Okay, so, the Yaz episode. Demons of the Punjab. As I've said, Graham is the most fleshed out companion, Ryan is getting there, but Yaz just sort of stands there and grins. Could this be where we finally get to see Yaz properly? Could this be better than last week's episode? I mean, it can't be that hard, surely. I'm Rich from What Culture, and it's time to face those demons. It's a family episode, not so much like Arachnids in the UK where Yaz's family were just along for the ride, but more like Father's Day from 2005, Rose and Pete, paradoxes and things going potentially drastically wrong in the future. It's Yaz's Gran's birthday. She gives her daughter and granddaughter something sentimental from her past. Some potentially raunchy letters, a flat flower and a broken watch. Can I have some context please, Gran? No. I don't want to talk about it. Well, to the TARDIS, I guess. So the TARDIS telepathic circuits are still green. Good. No putting your fingers into that weird, crystally, holy bit of the control panel this time. So it turns out objects over time pick up fragmentary spatio-temporal particles throughout its life, which apparently work like date stamps. Sure thing, Doc. Plug it in and let's go. Team TARDIS end up in 1947, Lahore, India. Let's spend 1 hour and look at Umbreen from a distance. So let's jump into a car driven by her future husband and get dropped off right at her front door. Well, this is Doctor Who. Nothing ever goes to plan. It's the Partition of India! It's one religion on this side and the other on that side. Right in the middle of it all is Yaz's nanny, Umbreen, a Muslim wanting to marry Prem, a Hindu. Both families are seemingly against the whole thing, but nobody's really putting their foot down to stop it. Yet. Instead, they just point at the demons that appear and say, this is what this unholy wedding has brought about. One thing I was concerned about this episode was that the Doctor might brush over the dangers of interfering with your own timeline. Weird to think they might just gloss over these very important things, but stranger things have happened this series. But thankfully, those constant warnings were still there. Your timeline could be at risk, a controversial wedding, a weird little brother who seems oddly well informed, 2 creepy demons, and a historical event with up to 2 million deaths hurtling towards everyone. This is setting up to be a really interesting one, and I'm excited. Up. So the main antagonists of this episode are these demons. We're led to believe that they killed the holy man Sadhu, and they keep appearing in people's minds. Like I said, antagonists. Or so we thought. We don't know why they're here, but Prem saw them before, stood over the body of his brother during the war. Obviously, they killed him, right? At this point, I started to see parallels to the guy from episode 1 who waited for Tim Shaw to return to confront him after killing his sister, but thankfully, this wasn't the case. Turns out these demons are officially known as the Assassins of the Thijar, a race of, well, assassins. It all fits now, sure. Well, their homeworld is gone, destroyed, nothing left. These two now honor the lost. The central hub of their ship thing is a canister containing DNA of every lost soul the demons honored, including some of their own race, the specks left over after the destruction of their planet. This heel turn was genuinely a moving moment. We've seen villains lead on our heroes before to some, oh, I'm actually good nonsense, but in reality I'm bad. But in this case, it was really believable. It was done in such a way not to entirely negate the threat, but move the threat onto something else. As for what, we weren't sure yet. That was until the demons revealed why they were here. They honored Sadhu like they were meant to, but someone else was going to die. It's Prem. That's why there was such a mystery revolving around Yaz's grandfather, and why future Umbreen was never wanting to talk about it. I loved all of this. Up. Also, can we take a moment to appreciate just how cool the demons looked? There's that budget again. Also, honoring the unknown dead. Do you think they knew that this episode will be airing on the centenary of the armistice, on Remembrance Day? I don't know, but it worked. As I said last week, this was all about Yaz. When it comes to the new companions, she was the least fleshed out of the 3. Most of the time she just stood grinning at everything, only chiming in whenever someone mentioned something related to her job as a police officer, or when she recognizes a word she heard in, I don't know, GCSE biology. For the first time this series, Yaz is center stage. She's got the watch. She's the reason we're heading to India in the first place. The Doctor has already warned her of interfering with something that could wipe her from existence, but in standard Rose Tyler / general companion fashion, she disregards everything and awkwardly hugs her Gran. Weird. At first, I thought Yaz would have this same constantly happy whimsicality of the Doctor when left to her own devices, but that doesn't seem to be the case. She comes across as sort of stubborn at times, but her heart is still there. She's got some more depth now, but a character arc doesn't seem to have been introduced, which is a good thing in my opinion, since we've already got one for Ryan and for Graham, and also one for them both together. Just that little bit of exploration to give Yaz a little bit more weight in this episode was brill, so up. As I said last week, however, juggling 3 companions isn't easy, and that was definitely apparent in Demons of the Punjab. Ryan and Graham felt a bit useless in this episode, kind of similar to Yaz last week. They could have easily just not been there. Some are suggesting that maybe it should be the case that only 1 or 2 of the 3 companions should come out with the Doctor on each adventure, which would make sense, but then it kind of defeats the traditional purpose of the companions. Anyway, Graham was as lovely as usual, with some really lovely dialogue and a properly heart-wrenching scene between him and Prem just before the wedding. Same can't be said for Ryan. I am convinced that Graham's dialogue is written by some wonderful, wholesome soul, whereas Ryan's dialogue is written by either predictive text, those fridge magnets with limited words on them, or he was just told on set to point at this and spell it out for the audience. The scene with the Doctor, Prem, and Ryan inside the hive was just awful. The Doctor sonics the thing and something happens. Hey, that worked. What is it? Oh, come on, Ryan. First you point out the bloody obvious, and then you ask what something is, assuming the Doctor isn't already preparing to monologue the absolute shit out of something that's alien. I'm assuming this guy just had his eyes and ears closed, not actually taking in anything about what the Doctor's like over the last 6 episodes. Ryan is a really hit and miss companion. In The Ghost Monument, Rosa, and Arachnids in the UK, he was really quite interesting with some really great arcs going on. Now, he is about as interesting as watching the colours from a poster in a corner shop window bleach in the sun. You could genuinely see this episode play out no different without Ryan, or even Graham. For Ryan's cheap robotic dialogue though, down. How to make this 3-companion dynamic work is something I'm hoping that Chibnall and the writing team wrap their head around by the next series. Otherwise, compromises might have to be made. Saying that, don't you dare kill off Graham, Chris. Literally nobody will ever forgive you. Could you imagine if Russell T Davies killed off Wilf? His head would be on a pike. Giving the guest stars of the series a big welcome at the end of episode 1 was wonderful. Little did we know just how wonderful some of these guest stars were going to be. Amita Suman is excellent as young Nani Umbreen. Shane Zaza is honestly excellent as Prem, but for me, top marks goes to Hamza Chatoa as Prem's younger brother Manish. Performances that make you fall in love with a character are one thing, but there's a whole other side to playing a character when you manage to make the audience truly hate you, especially in as short a space of time as this. Think Imelda Staunton as Dolores Umbridge in the Harry Potter series, or for me, Alfred Woodard as Maria in Luke Cage. Incredible performances, but you love to hate the character they play. Manish absolutely ticks this box, and Hamza Chatoa does an incredible job of it. Wanting to fortify those boundaries between religions, going the distance of murder to reinforce his beliefs, it's a bit on the nose for political commentary, but that's the point. Interested to know how many viewers would actually agree with him? I'm hoping none of you. But the guest stars of this episode, and especially Chatoa, it's an up from me. Even though we saw it coming, I say saw it coming, the demons bluntly spelled it out for us, Prem's death hit hard. For some, Rosa really hit that emotional spot, but for what seems like a lot more people, it was Demons of the Punjab. When all the pieces clicked about Manish being the villain, we all knew that this death would be by his hand, or at least somewhat. We were just waiting. We had no idea when we assume a bullet would strike, and it was dragged out to excruciating effect. Not in a bad way, just in a, oh god, just put us out of our misery, just let me cry way. That twist to make the monster of the week something terrestrial was excellent, especially since it was a blood betrayal. It was heart-wrenching, it was powerful, it was probably the best episode of the series so far. Up. Can we take a moment to appreciate the Doctor acknowledging her male past? Obviously, Team TARDIS are completely unaware of this whole regeneration thing. In pretty much every series gone by, we've had the trademark, this is the Doctor on file, look at all of these previous faces. Can you imagine how many questions will arise if Graham, Yaz and Ryan saw this? Blimey, it would be a fun one. Companions are always blissfully unaware prior and essentially horrified after regeneration is explained, and it's a whole different kettle of fish this time. I mean, I look forward to it. I really look forward to it. Speaking of the Doctor, I do have one gripe with this episode, and it kind of links back to previous episodes and will most likely, if not definitely, relate to future episodes. The over-reliance on the sonic screwdriver is back. We saw this before with Matt Smith, and it was just dull. Sonic hit, read it, there we go. Now, I do have to acknowledge the comments calling me out for hating on Matt Smith's Doctor. I understand, looking back, yeah, I've only ever mentioned him in a negative light. But I do like Matt Smith. I just can't stand Moffat. I could go on about that for hours, but now is not the time. This over-reliance on the sonic screwdriver explaining all plagued the Moffat era, and I really don't want it to taint the Chibnall era too. Back in Russell T Davies' time, the sonic was used to open doors, hack into systems, and occasionally track stuff. Now it is a utility belt that can do literally anything. To add insult to this, I mentioned this back in episode 1 of Ups and Downs, that the Doctor building gadgets and gizmos was wonderful, but now it's only ever occasionally. There now needs to be some kind of narrative beat to stop the sonic from doing its thing. Last week it was eaten by the Pating, which then just spat it out. Apparently you could digest anything. Oh, but that wouldn't work for the storyline. Yeah, whatever. Now it shorts out because it can't calculate billions of particles of DNA in one go. If the sonic shorting out is the only way we can get the Doctor to just build things, it definitely means you've written yourself into a corner regarding how integral the sonic is to everything. Back in the day, the Doctor just thought, fuck it, I'll make a machine that can read comic books and cook microwave dinners, as well as the thing I actually build it to do. Now the Doctor needs some kind of sonic-busting excuse. It's a shame. It's all scan and read, not investigate and think. Down. Finally, I find it astonishing to think there are people out there that are having a problem with the representation in this series. Apparently, Doctor Who is anti-white now. What? It isn't writing out white representation, it's now embracing everything, every colour, every creed, every gender. It's not that it didn't do it before, it's just more prominent now. And if you have a problem with that, stop watching. Close the blinds that bring in the light through your living room window and sit in the dark. I guess that will make you feel more at home, physically blocking out the fact there's an entire world out there. Doctor Who is the biggest it's ever been. It has audiences all over the world, and everyone gets a slice of the representation cake. It's a win-win. Either that or you just don't like cake. Who doesn't like cake? Someone made a good point about this on Reddit. Doctor Who used to only really showcase British historical figures, yet it's a show that spans the entirety of space and time. I know that it is a British television series, and it is really British. The TARDIS spits out custard creams, for God's sake. But the appeal is universal. So stop voting Leave and leave Doctor Who alone. Go and wank over pictures of Nigel Farage with a pint. I don't know what people with this mindset do in their spare time. So that was Demons of the Punjab. In my opinion, the best episode of the series so far. Next week looks pretty flippin' creepy though. Those things look like the Smilers from Series 5's The Beast Below got busy with C-3PO. Either way, no. But it's got Lee Mack in it, so that should be fun. Don't forget to subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for lists, news, podcasts, and other timey-wimey bollocks every single day. And WhatCulture.com is indeed a big ball of wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey content. I'm Rich from What Culture. You can follow me on Twitter @PickupChangeToe, and I'll see you next week.